welcome back to ASEAN Newsroom for the last session. Welcome, pass around. What do you have for this one?
Well, I have a special report, the last part of the Greater Makong sub-region to ASEAN Economic Community.
The one that you went?
Yes.
Wow.
And this time, Kunirasha, many policies are set up in order to be implemented with caution and effectiveness. It also needs a good governance. Let's see. The challenges from human resource development and capacity building are firstly, how best to enhance human resource capacity in implementing free trade agreement. Fortunately, the increase in connectivity that has occurred with development of economic corridors in the Greater Makong sub-region have facilitated the regional free trade to a certain degree. However, the proliferation of free trade agreement has placed increasing strains on regional FTA negotiations and creating a demand for new technical skills among stakeholders. Secondly, for the SMEs, they're actually the backbone of every economy in the GMS. In particular, the need to develop small and medium-sized enterprises in Cambodia, Laos PDR, Myanmar, and Vietnam has been well recognized. Nevertheless, expected supporting technological functions for SMEs, which are crucial for further industrialization of the CLMV countries, have not been fully developed. Along with the matter, Dr. Sushat Gatima, the Makong Institute Director, and Dr. Lothar Mankay, founder and managing director of Regionomica Asia Singapore, have a viewpoint on such preparation for the GMS as a whole to incorporating with the AEC. GMS policy strengths in preparation to becoming a potential force of AEC.
Yes, okay. If you look at the GMS is composed of 5 ASEAN countries plus Yunnan and Guangxi of China. It's about the size of EU and the population of the US, which is about 325 million. And if you look at the map, you can see that this is in the heart of the economic growth in this century. We are the middle of China and India. If altogether, if China want to trade with India, they will have to go through GMS. If Philippines want to trade with China, they will go through GMS. So GMS is vital to the integration of AEC. And because of GMS economic cooperation so successful, then we become the example of AEC integration in the future. So that is the potential. Yes.
Well, I think this conference of the Makong Institute is one good example showing that human resource development, capacity building is one key. This is also one major lesson from the development in Europe, that you have to prepare the entrepreneurs, you have to prepare the workforce, you have to prepare also the public sector, and this is what's going on here. But I think also there are many other things that the entrepreneurs here are very much looking to the global development. They are much better integrated as the EU entrepreneurs were 40 years ago.
Apart from the FTAs and SMEs, ASEAN connectivity also implies the development of cross-border agricultural practices, particularly in the CLMV countries. The diversification of local CLMV agriculture from mainly rice to include various cash crops, cassava, sugarcane, quinoa, maize, soybean, peanut, fresh vegetables and fruits has been facilitated by infrastructure development and economic cooperation within the GMS. However, the distinguished political systems of each country in the GMS making the regional cooperation challenging, partly because some countries still lack of proper good governance. Let's hear out what experts have got to say on this. How about in terms of good governance and good politics? What are your suggestions that each country could do to facilitate the human resources and help build the capacity to strengthen the regional integration and cooperation?
Of course, GMS consists of 5 member countries of ASEAN: Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar. And now that they are looking at AEC, meaning that they look at a way to connect with ASEAN community. So if they look at the ASEAN overall master plan on connectivity, they will see quite clearly the direction, the strategy, the key action they need to do to support ASEAN and to integrate or interface with what ASEAN is doing. So if they, in terms of good governance politics, if they look at the key actions, the timeline, and they put their political will behind it, and resources that are available, that if they take it seriously, then I think we have a lot of hope.
Right. We have experienced political unrest within the region. For example, colored protests in Thailand, rare anti-China uprising in Vietnam, or the border conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. So do you think these political issues are hindering or becoming obstacles the overall development of GMS or probably AEC as a whole?
Of course, I think in the short term, it will be just like a stumbling block, but it would not affect the long-term plan of AEC 2015 or AEC 2020. In the past, I mean, there's always some incident, unfortunate incident like in Myanmar, in Thailand, the red shirt, the yellow shirt, the multiple shirts, and the unfortunate border tension. But I think if you look, people still go to each other. There's still a lot of investment of Thailand in Cambodia. There's a lot of Cambodian working in Thailand. There's a lot of Chinese trade in Vietnam despite the protests. There's also a lot of people. We are so interdependent economically and socially. Despite this political disturbance, people, the willingness people still want to be together. At present, about 44% of low-skilled workers in Thailand are migrants, and about 70% of construction workers in Laos are migrants. There's over 800,000 fisher, or we call fishermen in Cambodia, are migrants. So people are working everywhere, and with this disturbance, I don't think there will be any long-term implication.
To enjoy such economic progress, it is imperative to have all political issues settled. The possibility of FTAs, SMEs, and cross-border agriculture prosperity all depends on the consistency in moving the regional integration and cooperation forward. GMS to AEC has been compared to the establishment and development of EU, one of the most successful regional blocs in the world. Experts do have opinions on this.
So, Mr. Lothar, comparing with a developed global bloc like EU, do you think GMS is well prepared enough to be incorporated to AEC, thus overall, enhancing ASEAN as a regional integration?
Well, I'm pretty convinced that the ASEAN, the GMS, will be the same development like in Europe. So if you look back, you needed 40 years to come to that level what they have today. But when I compare how you are prepared and how Europe was prepared 40 years ago, you are in a much better condition. So I think you will do it much quicker, and I'm pretty sure you will have your single currency, your single market, you will have no border anymore, and this will be a big progress for that area.
Comparing with a developed global bloc like EU, do you think GMS is well prepared enough to be incorporated to AEC, thus overall enhancing ASEAN as a regional integration?
I think maybe we should look at GMS in its own context, because GMS has been created 17 years ago, and they have done a lot of work in terms of infrastructure, network, enhanced contact between the GMS people. In fact, it's an important building block for us in ASEAN to build on our connectivity. And now it's good that through MI, Makong Institute, which is the capacity building arm of GMS, to focus on the need to follow what ASEAN economic blueprint is doing. The seminar today is the theme is moving from GMS to AEC. The conference, we have to identify the areas, the strengths, the weaknesses, and how they can close the gap.
The GMS countries' long and successful forging of regional integration and cooperation links will serve them well in moving towards the ASEAN Economic Community 2015.
พัสุรางค์เดชาพุทธรังสีขอนแก่น Thailand
In order to be incorporated into the ASEAN Economic Community. Let's see this report by me.
Considering the promising policies of this forum, there are two significant key aspects from the conference in enhancing economic ties in the GMS. Human resource development and capacity building are critical factors in strengthening GMS countries' ability to integrate into ASEAN Economic Community.
The original target date for achieving ASEAN Community was 2020. Their 2007 meeting in the Philippines, the ASEAN leaders agreed to accelerate the pace and brought this date forward to 2015, the due date of the ASEAN Economic Community.
There is a strong recognition that the development of a skilled, qualified, and capable workforce will be key to the economic success of the AEC 2015 and to achieving sustainable social development. Human capital development is a crucial contributor to an integrated economic community. Education of the workforce, if well implemented, will substantially empower their productivity and earnings. This, thus, will increase demand and competition for skilled labor across the region. Demands will be placed on government officials to ensure that they are capable of effectively implementing and monitoring AEC agreement and policies. This actually requires good governance from each of the country. Let's hear out what experts suggest upon this matter. Mr. Roni Sorakasoma, head of Initiative for ASEAN Integration and Narrowing the Development Gap Division at the ASEAN Secretariat, talk about the human resource empowerment.
When we talk about government signing agreements, it is important that there is some level of commitment on the government to provide the necessary capacity, resources, and assistance, or what have you, either they be technical assistance or financial assistance, because you cannot really have the people, implement by themselves. You have to have some form of assistance, and I think capacity is one of the more important things. Better understanding of the agreements, better planning. So all these require resources from the government, which the people or even the stakeholders require. They can't do it by themselves. So when the government says we sign an agreement, they have to go all out in providing and mobilizing the resources.
And the second question is free trade agreement, SMEs integration, cross-border facilitation are positive developments and promises to drive towards single market economy, but somehow it needs good governance in each of the country. What do you think?
Yes, when you talk about free trade, you're actually trying to improve your competitiveness outside the country, outside the region, in this case ASEAN. So you have to have a level of standard that is acceptable internationally. You cannot produce goods that are not of high standards because nobody will buy them. Right? And you cannot provide services that are not up to par because, again, how do you measure yourself? Do you want to measure yourself to the lowest denominator, or do you want to improve yourself to a much higher standard? So that's where FTAs come in. They provide opportunities for countries to improve themselves, to improve their standards of living. And then when you talk about SMEs, we all know that SME is the backbone of the ASEAN economy, and it is important for them to also improve their competitiveness in terms of international market. So again, all this requires resources from the government, not only to help the big companies compete with international multinational companies, but also for the SMEs as well.
Economically speaking, do you think GMS, or particularly CMLV countries, still lack of the implementation of empowering human resources? What areas do you think should GMS promote?
I think that in terms of empowering human resources, I think they need to think a lot about starting at the top with the leadership. And I think we need to focus on empowering human resources at the senior government level to start with, so that the senior government people set a good example. Because in Asia, I have found out over the years that I've lived here that in fact without strong leadership, the people will not follow. So that it's very important that the leadership has good governance and has accountability and has transparency, so that they set a good example for the rest of the people in their countries. I think if they start at that level, that it will get down to the people eventually. I would like to be able to say we need training and empowerment and so forth at the local level, but in fact I think that in the case of ASEAN, I think that we need to have a much more strong leadership and empowerment at the leadership level that will then provide the good leadership that's needed to support the people.
Considering free trade agreement, SMEs integration, cross-border facilitation, these are positive developments and promises to drive towards a single market economy within the region, but somehow it needs a good governance, from each of the countries. So what do you think? Where the problem lies?
Yeah, I think that we need good corporate governance, and I think that's extremely important. I think that if the big companies that are now essentially the most dynamic movers and shakers in ASEAN, then I think that if these large corporations demonstrate good governance, that they're going to set a good example for the SMEs, and then the SMEs will follow and provide have good governance as well. What I'm afraid is happening, however, is that the large companies are getting land concessions, particularly in the CLMV countries, and they are not demonstrating good governance at those levels. And as a result, the SMEs are saying that, well, these companies can get away with it. Why can't we get away with it? So I think that the SMEs really need some good examples to follow, and that good governance will then eventually come down to the SME level as well.
So economically speaking, do you think GMS, particularly the CLMV countries, still lack of the implementation of how to empower human resources? What areas do you think should GMS promote?
I'm in a very specialized area. My area of research is very specialized. I'm working on competition policy. So I'm speaking only for that issues. I think many enterprises in the GMS is still a very small scale, and they need an enabling environment to be able to integrate into and compete with bigger partner, bigger player in the region. So, and my area is to ensure that level playing field is in place. One point in the action plan, in the blueprint toward an AEC in 2015, is to have all the countries in the ASEAN to introduce a competition policy. And as of now, GMS countries, in particular Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar, do not have that policy in place yet. So in the future, they will need a lot more human resource development activities or capacity building activities. So in order to be able to get that policy in place, and for their enterprise to be able to make use of that and integrate more into the region.
GMS countries need to leverage on the rise of China, as well as their commitment to ASEAN to improve their economies. That's the final goal. Fortunately enough, tangible inter-regional cooperation is already taking place, such as connectivity of infrastructure, institutions, and people. This is obviously determined to facilitate the regional free trade, improve SME value chains, and progress to cross-border agricultural practices. When the final part comes, all these areas will be elaborated with a focal point in politics. Until then, Pasurang Desha Putharangsi, ASEAN Business Report.